Well, hey there. Welcome to Real WW Talk. I'm Erin.
I'm Candace.
And I'm Ricky.
Ladies, I have had something in my fridge that I have been waiting to pop the top on.
Okay.
And it is from Target. It's a new seltzer water. Have you seen the rainbow sherbet sparkling water?
Oh, you're speaking my language. I have not, and I
Oh,
need it in my life.
okay. Candace, I will make sure you have this in your life since you're still recovering, ma'am.
Erin.
I can
Can I sample some too?
Here,
Yes.
I'll pour a little out for each of you.
Thank you.
I found it at Target. Rainbow, I guess it's properly sherbet, not sherbet, but that's how we've always said it since we were kids. Sherbet.
Really? It's not sherbet?
Yeah, look at that because it's SHERBET.
I thought it was sherbet. I thought Ricky was going to say it's sherbet.
Sherbet.
I'm sure it has an origin that's not, I don't know. It's probably French.
Like, it's probably not.
I feel like that's going to be the summer flavor.
Yes, I need to sample that in my life. Just so you know, now that you brought it, you must give us a sample. Like you actually like it's on your list. Sorry.
Yeah, it's on my list. I would, if I have to rank sparkling water flavors, that's pretty high up, right next to was it Unicorn Dreams?
Mhm.
Unicorn flavor from Polar.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yes.
Delightful.
I've never found a sparkling water that I didn't like. I am just that girl. And I always order it if I go out, I order it on the rocks.
Yes.
There you
With
go.
a twist of lime.
With some lime. And they're like, but I think the problem is everybody thinks that I have a problem with alcohol. And I'm like, no, I just really like sparkling water. They're like, you need to say it to make yourself feel fancy. I said, no, I really just.
No, I love it. Yeah.
I love soda. That's
I'm that girl.
Yes.
Also, alcohol doesn't let me sleep really well. And so I'd rather have more sleep than less sleep.
Important.
And you would rather I have more sleep than less sleep.
Yes, you would.
So that I was away this week at a conference, and one of the nights they have some adult beverages at this one particular place, and so a lot of people are getting the adult beverages, and I was like, well, go for it all you want, but I've got to get up in the next morning. I got to lead a session, and I need to sleep. It's already hard enough because there's so much greatness happening, right?
Mhm.
And so I got a Shirley Temple. And right, how excited you get the cherry in the glass and all of that. I am so excited that I started a Shirley Temple trend. Like people saw me getting, like what we talked about, last week, where we were talking about the food sins, and I did a food what to do. Everybody was like, oh, a Shirley Temple, that sounds like fun. And the next thing you know, the cherries were flying. So
if I'm trying to save calories, and when I used to drink diet soda a lot, I would do a Diet Coke with grenadine and ask them to put cherry on it. So I was like, it's like a Diet cherry Coke Shirley, kind of.
That sounds good.
Try to make it
your own thing.
Yeah.
So we are wrapping up this month. Maybe you didn't know, it's Mental Health Month. May is Mental Health Month. And so as we think back on our journeys, especially with WW, do you guys remember when WW made that very distinct shift to taking mental health in what we think about ourselves as part of the journey? It stopped being all about the pounds into how we think about the things, how that impacts our weight loss.
I remember there was a lot of pushback, like surprisingly, and I think that actually is very telling.
Yeah.
When we talk about mental health month and how people, including myself, sometimes you think it's all about just, the points or the points in, points out when I'm eating, drinking, if I'm moving my body, but we tend to minimize the fact that how we're feeling, what we're thinking, how that impacts what we do every day. I mean, it, but I feel like a lot of the kickback. Do you all remember, people were like, who told them to go ahead? Just focus on the points. I don't need you to preach to me about this, all that stuff. People were very resistant to all of the, how are you feeling about that? how are you doing with your emotions? And they're like, I don't need that.
Right. Have the smiley faces all of a sudden, you had to rank how you were feeling. I remember, I feel like the group, the Weight Watchers group, whether it be at our local meetings or just nationwide, has never been, or worldwide even, has never been great at change. Like there's always some kind of ripple effect in the community if there's change, which has only gotten worse with the internet getting as vast as it is. But I feel like people were like, but it justified their thinking that they needed to change. And it's like, well, if I'm going into life thinking that I'm happy with myself the way I am, then what am I doing here? It's like, but we should be prioritizing how we feel about ourselves, how we view ourselves, the way we are. And I think that was a really big shift from let me change myself so I can fit into this mold versus let me love myself the way I am as I decide how I want to make myself a healthier person.
Yeah, because a lot of people, when they did lose the weight, they discovered the problems that they had we had tied, when I lose the weight, life will be great.
Right.
And we didn't realize that we take ourselves with us wherever we go at whatever weight we are. And if I'm not going to be happy here, what makes me think that all my problems will magically go away, or I'll be loved more or seen more or valued more over here? When we've had so many conversations of like, well, I got to the weight, but I didn't feel better about myself. The dates didn't come, or all of a sudden people started paying attention to me when they didn't pay attention to me before, right? It's those range, that's its own set of emotions. Do you guys remember too, for yourselves, and maybe you've still faced it along the journeys? Like I remember inside of my head was not a good place to be. I've talked plenty of times where I've said, I think the biggest thing for me on the journey was I just wanted to quiet the noise in my mind, and the things that I was saying to myself were just terrible.
Yeah. I think that when I resisted for so long addressing some of the things that I needed to address that was causing me to not have the sustained health. It wasn't even weight loss, the health journey that I wanted, because it was uncomfortable. When you're stuck thinking that the way that you process is just right. Like, I wanted to believe that the weight was going to fix it, and that if I could just get to this number, that was going to be the end all. So, but when I learned through the journey, oh, well, there's other things going on. I didn't want to fight that battle. And the longer that I put off addressing the things, the harder that the journey got. I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's like, I started to see success, but then I became obsessive. And I think I've shared that about my prior journeys. I got really, really dangerous with the things that I did because I still didn't want to address why I still didn't feel whole in the process. So, I think a lot of people are running from that feedback and running from the things that you could learn about yourself because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think it's easy to think that it is something. It's like, oh, affirmations. Like we kind of slap something like that on it and we feel like that's it. Or, oh, I saw a therapist a couple of times or whatever it is. But I think for me, it's been a learning process to know that it's ongoing work, and the progress with like how I view myself, how I view my body, like it's slow, but that's how it's supposed to be. It's not something that we didn't get to thinking about ourselves and having the mental health that we have overnight, so it's a process to shift, to relearn and unlearn some of the negative thought habits that may be going on, or even the almost automatic things we say about ourselves, like, oh man, I can't believe I was so dumb and I did that. Like, why does that come out of my mouth so quickly? I have to like stop those thoughts and stop those voices. And it's really, sometimes it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
How do you guys think that your mental health around the journey has changed, even from, let's just, instead of from the beginning of the journey, maybe even just the last 5 years, like since COVID. And by the way, I just want to add to, we are not mental health professionals. So if you are someone who is in a really, you know that you're in a dangerous spot, please seek help. We'll put some information within the show notes for you. But we're just friends here, kind of discussing this the way that friends have a conversation do.
What was the question again? Because I thought that was a very good reminder.
How do you see a difference in your mental health, positive or negatively? Let's say since we started doing the podcast, since COVID, since 2020. I mean, it's 5 years now.
Yeah. You want to go?
I can share. I think I am starting again the slow process of believing that I can do more than I thought I could do, and then I could be more than I thought. Like, I think I really did feel like what you said earlier, Erin, my life is going to be better when I lose the weight. And I'm starting that process of the weight is coming off, but it's coming off slowly, but I'm still doing the mental work. So I'm seeing my confidence boost. And again, it's not like going from here to, from low to really high overnight, but it's slowly, incrementally growing. And I can see myself stepping outside of my comfort zone in a lot of areas where I wouldn't have done that before, or I would have thought that I would have made those choices to do those things when I reached my goal weight. So I think that's a shift in my mind that like, I don't have to wait and I'm worthy of doing it now. I shared earlier that I did read the book Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima, who was a guest on, back when SEMA was still a part of WW. And I still recommend that book because I think that's a huge shift of understanding the difference between self-confidence and worthiness. But I think that has been helpful for me, realizing I'm worthy now of all the good things that I desire.
It's really easy to kind of stay in the path of that I'm not worthy of the things that I desire, right? And then you can kind of start to keep going down little by little. What did you do that stopped it, that then made it start going upwards to I am worthy?
I think sometimes stopping the thoughts and sometimes it's just like putting one foot before the other and doing something. You said it before, doing something afraid, Candace, like taking the step of saying, I'm going to do this, even though it's really scary. I'm going to wear the bathing suit in front of all the people. They could laugh at me. They really could. And most likely they don't care, but there could be that one person. There really could be that one person who points at me, says I look like a beached whale and laughs. But the times that I've done that in the past year or couple of years where I've taken off my shawl and I've walked around in a bathing suit, nothing's happened. Absolutely nothing has happened. But it took me saying, I know I'm scared, but I have to do this for myself. I don't know if there's one moment where I can remember where I said it was just more so a combination of me going to therapy, reading books, and saying, it seems like the common denominator here is stepping out from fear.
And I don't see that as, if I could, I don't, when you said stopping the thought, I actually see that as you challenging the thought and saying head on, which is a little different than stopping. No, this is acknowledging the thoughts there and saying, I see you. I challenge myself to rise above that and to know that whether or not that may be a way or not, you mustered up enough to say, let me try.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so beautiful, because challenging and acknowledging the thought is there and saying, even though it's there, I still will. I still will put on the suit and go out, or I still will let myself be vulnerable when I could be hurt. Because as my therapist always says, she always used to say, why do you keep walking through life with your hands up? You're not Muhammad Ali. Like, you can't see if you got your hands up all this. And I was like, but what if someone tries to hit me? She was like, okay, but what if they don't? What are you missing? What are you missing when you're going up like this? And I think that that's just a beautiful reminder. You've been able to see some beautiful things. It's not without its own fears, right? But you've had so much, I'm speaking for you, that you've had more beautiful moments from allowing yourself that opportunity. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I think for me, mine is similar, not that, but I would say freedom is what I would say I've experienced in the past 5-ish years. But that's tied to letting go of perfect, which has been a process that's like this, as anyone who's listened to the broadcast knows. Because some weeks I'm really great with being like, I'm not perfect. And other weeks I'm like, I have to do it exactly right. It really is like obsessive for me sometimes. But I've had enough evidence that by pushing back against those perfectionistic standards, great example, I'm in a wedding and there was a bridal shower and they gave a huge piece of cake at the end. And if you know anything about me, I love a piece of cake, especially with icing. I'm not the one who's like, I don't want icing. Ew. No, give me all the icing. Okay. And like, don't give me the corner piece. Like, if anything, don't hate me enough to give me the middle piece that doesn't have any of the frosting.
I know if you're my friend or not, depending on the piece of cake
you give me the middle piece. Like, what are you doing? Like, what's the point? Because there's only frosting up here. So just forget
middle piece brownies, corner piece cake.
Yes. Okay. Like, and if it's all like 3 on the side, like we are really friends. And they did that. But you know what I did? I cut it in half because I just didn't want the whole thing. I could have eaten the whole thing, but I chose to have half. And to me, that still wasn't perfect, because perfect may have been saying I'm having no cake because I don't want cake. No, I had it. I stopped when I was full. I left some cake there. And to me, that was freedom. That to me was normal. And normal being able to enjoy a party with a friend and celebrate something. It wasn't about the cake really at all. It was a part of the thing. That is the freedom that working on the mental health piece of why am I holding on to perfection? I had to go to therapy. I had to challenge every day. What am I getting from holding on to this? You know, and that's why I said, I think that's why we resist it so much, especially when programs like Weight Watchers or anything focus on it, because sometimes you don't get it the first try. It could take a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years before you're like, oh, that's why I did that. So for me, I would say that I've gained freedom from letting go of perfection.
You know, the common denominator of something that I kind of hear, especially when I think about even just, you know, my own things with mental health, is that in the times where we're struggling the most with it, and, you know, please feel free to speak to the opposite. It seems like actually what we're more struggling with is control. Or we feel like it's a sense of loss of control in some ways. And so we buckle down with more control to make it feel like it. But all that ends up doing is boxing us in. And it's actually releasing, letting go, the free falling, which feels scary, but it's the fear that keeps us bound up. It's that the opposite of that is what actually sets us free.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I have a question for you. So again, mental health, we know how it plays into everything. When you are not, for any reason, if you're struggling with mental health because maybe work has gotten crazy, life has gotten crazy, everything around you, how does that show up in terms of your health, in terms of how you're treating yourself physically? Because I feel like there's a correlation, and I'm just curious if you all do as well. So when you're not addressing those mental health things, whether that means you're not taking time to do things that you love, or putting others first, or getting perfectionistic or worried or anxious, how does that show up in your health journey?
I'll tell you, for me, I let go of everything, which is not a good thing. It's like I let go of the routine. Some of it is like I just don't feel like cooking, and I have to cook with the food allergies. That I have to be an ingredient person. I just don't have the thoughts to do that. I don't have the energy to do that. The sleep is not as good as it could be. And then I let go of water and walking. And so it's basically I've stopped feeding the plant of me. And plants don't thrive without water. They don't thrive without sunshine. What makes me think that I can thrive without as well? And those are the times where I have to come back to feet first and your head will follow. I have got to put my feet first in drinking water today. So I'm going to get up this morning. I'm going to drink a cup of water first thing I do.
Right.
I'm going to go out for a walk. It can just be around the block. I'm not trying to break a record. I'm just simply going outside because I'm changing my environment and I'm going to absorb some sunlight. I'm going to hear some birds chirping, which I always know lifts my mood, right? It's like getting back to doing just some really, really small, basic things.
Yeah.
But that's how I notice for me is like it's a complete absence of everything. And then it's like, wait a minute, I gotta feet first, head will follow. I gotta push down into this.
That's what I was going to ask, and I'm glad that you added that on. I was going to say, after you identified how you do, then what's that step that makes you say, okay, how do I turn that corner? So you said for you, it's feet first, head will follow. Let me start with a glass of water, and then that kind of those steps. I'm guessing repeated steps help you get into the headspace of treating yourself well again.
Yep. And I will say every step feels like I'm slogging through peanut butter. Right. That's not an easy, okay, today we're going to do this. It's like, I'm fighting for myself. I'm fighting for myself right now.
Yeah.
And I'll say I can relate a lot, Erin. I feel like I'm the same thing. Like the first thing to go is the routines, the meal prep. It's easy to press a button now and food can show up on your door. And I know that's, an easier thing to do since I don't have the allergies, but like still it's not healthy. It's not, it's not conducive to anything for me, like to spending. And I think that also impacts my spending and things. If I'm like, I start to let that go, and then it's like, I'm letting the food go, I'm letting the spending go. And it's just, it's just an overall, like I'm being irresponsible right now I'm throwing a little tantrum, like an adult tantrum. Like I want this now. I want to do this because I'm upset about XYZ. And the other thing I do that really feels like sabotage is, have you guys heard of, I don't know if I've brought this up before, but like the revenge bedtime thing. You like heard that? Yeah. So I do that all the time. And it's like, I'm only hurting myself. Like I really like, it's literally the only person that's being impacted by this is me and, morning me. And like nighttime me is like, I don't care. She's going to be tired, but she'll be all right. So I go to bed later and later. If I've been doing things for, other people, or I've been, having to stay late at work, I'm like, well, I deserve to stay up till midnight if I want to. I want to get all the things done that I wanted to do. I wanted to read this book and I wanted to finish the show. And I have to figure out what to have for dinner. I have to wash the dishes. I deserve to stay up until I get to do all the things I wanted to do, other than the things I have to do. And so if I end up going up to bed at midnight, I still have to get up at 6 a.m. So, if my goal is to have 8 hours of sleep, I can't do that if I go to bed at midnight. And, I feel like I'm doing myself a favor because I'm giving myself what I want, but I'm taking away from myself the sleep and the rest and restoration time that I really need.
So then when you find yourself in that cycle, because I remember you talking about that, what do you find has been the best way for you to bring yourself out of that too? I mean, I know that Erin, we talk about trudging through, but what are some of your steps when you find yourself in that?
I think one of the things I do is I kind of do a hard analysis of how I'm spending my time. And I think I realize I have more downtime than I give myself credit for. It's just how I'm using it. Like, for example, scrolling on social media. Like, it feels like I've only been doing it for a few minutes, but it's like I look at the clock, it's like, oh, that's really been like an hour. Like, could I have been, if I said I wanted to watch one episode of a show, could I have watched the episode at that time? Or if I wanted to read for 20 minutes, could I have done that and then scrolled? And then I would have felt like I did all the things and I could still get up and go to bed at, a more reasonable time. So for me, it's like kind of taking a log of those things. And just trying to be more aware of the time. I've never set a timer for bed, but I do have an alarm clock that has like the information about like that pops up on my phone that says like, hey, you probably should go to bed now. So I try to listen to that too.
Yeah.
Candace, how about you?
I find, especially if I'm overwhelmed or if I'm anxious or my mental health is just not there because I'm feeling the feels of life. Erin, back to your statement of control, I tend to find myself that manifests by becoming obsessive. Like, okay, I have to be perfect. I have to have a to-do list. I have to do stuff all day long. I try to fill every moment, with something, or I'm constantly going, which means, and I may not be eating the best foods because I may say I'm not going to eat at all because I'm filling my day with other things. And I'm not taking time to exercise because I'm like, I need to do all these other things. Like obsessive is the word that comes to mind. And whenever I see that, I'm like, something I'm controlling here. Like maybe if I can control all the chaos by adding 50 things to my to-do list, then somehow I'll make some semblance or some sense of all of the chaos that's going on in my world. And what I've learned that has helped me to kind of change that when I see it, I'm so aware of it now because I can usually tell by like, okay, wait, why do I have a to-do list of 50 things? Is that realistic for one person to do? I'm not saying that things aren't real. Like they're real, but is it realistic or is it even
necessary?
Is it necessary? And so what I do is I release. And that's something that my therapist has worked on me with, is just saying, when you see yourself starting to get like really, really amped up and like, this has to be this and this has to be this and this, stop. And I want you for 30 minutes to do nothing. And I want you to just sit with nothingness. And for me, it resets me. I'm not saying it's immediate. I'm not saying it's all the time, but after that 30 minutes, it may be that I need physical activity. And the activity is not as a to-do list item, but just as a reset. Like I need to go for a walk, like you may have said, Erin, or I need to eat an apple, not because it's a vegetable and it's just a healthy habit that I'm doing that isn't from a place of obsession or control. And so I found that to be something that's helped, because I've had several times throughout this past 3 months, where I've had to process really big emotions and really big feelings in a way that's productive for me, because I realize how quickly it can go downhill. And that's what I think I love when we talk about mental health, is that everybody, it's like, what do we do? It's one of identifying when we're off track, but really more so, what are we doing when we see it, and how do we turn ourselves back? Because that's the key. Because I think once we can see it, and break down, what is it like, kind of make the time in between that, shorter and shorter. Like, I'm off track. Let me go ahead and quickly. I'm getting obsessive. I don't like it.
Because there'll always be, I don't know about you guys, there'll always be a voice that says, you might as well just quit.
Yeah.
You can't go back. Like this is never going to change. So you might as well just give in.
Yeah.
Right. It's just too much. Like, I feel like when that voice, you've turned a dangerous corner when that voice starts. That's the time where you've got to, like, with all of your might go, nope, that's not true. Because I've seen this enough times to know what is true. And I know this is what's happening right now in my circumstance. And, it's to kind of like what was alluded to earlier, is what is true, and not being afraid, because what may be true is, I'm sitting here in this space, but it doesn't mean I'm staying here. And it's as we've talked about before, get curious about it. Okay. So what if I was on the beach and somebody said I look like a whale? So what do I do then? Am I going to will I let the one comment completely derail me for the next year and erase all of the progress that I'm making? This person I don't even exchange Christmas cards with, this stranger on the beach, right? Stranger danger. He needed some more Mr. Rogers in his life when he was a kid, right? I should pity that person, right? Because that's an overflow of an ugly heart. But I'm not going to let the ugly heart taint my pretty heart, right? Like it's being able to know who you are, so that you can begin to use words to remind yourself of what is true.
And when you don't have the words, one thing that we do really well is lean on our community. And I think that, because one of the things that we tend to do, tying it back to mental health, the sickness is in the silence, And so it's in not sharing, it's in keeping it to yourself. Because if you can be isolated with your thoughts and your feelings instead of reaching out to Aaron and Ricky and saying, I'm just not, I'm starting to feel this, or I have these thoughts. And because sometimes when you're not able to process correctly, it's good to go to your community of people who you trust, and find your people who you trust and say, I'm sharing this with you because I just don't feel like mentally I'm where I need to be. And I just want to tell you, because you may say, I know that about you. And I just want to affirm you're okay. Or yes, you do need to do this. I think we don't lean on our community enough and trust our friends or trust our support system to be able to help us through, because we all need somebody. We weren't meant to do life alone.
No.
And I think that the lie is that people can't handle our hard things. And so I think that is something that can, especially if we see ourselves going down an unhealthy path, I think that's the power of community. And whether it's the Real WW Talk community, we have people who will post and say, this is what I'm feeling. I love when I see those posts. I'm feeling vulnerable. This is what I'm thinking. This is how this hurt, or this is what I'm processing. We'll send texts to each other. We'll say, can you pray for me? Because this is happening, or this is going on. That's all a part of, to me, true mental health awareness, but also it's a tool to help you stay healthy on the journey, physically and mentally.
I think there's a question that I would always ask myself when I was, going through my ups and downs. And it is this actually a thought that I would choose to think to myself if I was in a different space? If I didn't have all of this, if I didn't have all these things going on right now, is this a thought that I would choose to think? And if it's not a thought that I would choose to think in a healthy time, then I know that this is a thought that's coming up because of everything else, right? It's a situation. It's a situational time. And then also even just thinking to steer clear of the thoughts that are absolutes. Oh, I'll never conquer this. This won't ever happen. This can't. When we lean into those absolutes like that, those aren't true either, because anything is possible. Everything's possible. And we've seen it plenty of times. We're just in a little bubble right now where it feels that way. But as we've said plenty of times, feelings aren't truth. Yeah. So just, a little bit of encouragement, if that's maybe where you are today, just to, like, you've heard us say plenty of times, the things that we think aren't always true, and to challenge those thoughts. And, come join the Real WW Talk Facebook community. We've got over 10,000 people in there. I'm pretty sure you will find someone who understands what you're feeling, what you're thinking. If you're looking at us and going, oh, okay, well, they don't even weigh the same amount and I've got this much more to lose, right? Or, whatever the thought may be, we have such a vast group of men and women who have experienced so many things. And you can post as an anonymous person as well if you don't want to post as yourself. But, challenge the thoughts. If there's anything that's in there that's leaning towards those absolutes of the NTs, can't, won't, don't, the vers, the evers, the nevers.
I love that. Yes. That needs to be a shirt, Aaron.
Yes.
I should do that. We should do that. Yeah. But so we just wanted to take a moment, because mental health is such a part. We're so glad WW did kind of go down that path a couple years ago, because I think that unlocked, especially for us many years ago, like, oh, and no wonder I struggle to lose weight. It's not always just about the weight. It's how
this is why there's a Real WW Talk. Okay? Because we started being like, what does this mean? More. Get outside in that parking lot.
If you go back and listen to those early episodes, my gosh, the difference in us from then to now, but that's 5 years of growth, and that's 5 years of challenging ourselves and challenging our thoughts, and 5 years of the talk with one another. So.
Love it.
Well, come join us in the Real WW Talk Facebook group. We'd love to have you there. And we just want to give a big shout out to the supporters of this show. Thank you so much for those contributions that help make this possible. We're super grateful for you. And we hope you have a great week, no matter what the plan you're doing, or maybe no plan. You're just here to have some fun with us and do some thinking. We love that too.
We love you.
All right.